There will be spoilers ahead. Lots of spoilers, so be careful, won't you?
It's okay, Max. You don't have to do anything you don't want to. You're safe here. And see, I have your favorite, Capri Sun. You can have a Capri Sun. Or water. Would you like some water? Okay, juice box it is. And, well, you can't start a trip without a ham sandwich, can you? Would you like a ham sandwich? Or maybe a kosher pickle. You like kosher pickles. Wait, I have a Dolly Madison Zinger. Or no, Hostess Big Wheel, Chocodile, Little Debbie, Ho Ho, Yankee Doodle, Suzy Q, Shake a Pudding, Ding Dong, Tasty Cake. Well, you want some Kugel? Space Food Stick? Tang? How about a bowl of Baron von Redberry? King Vitamin? No, I know, Muggo Lunch. No. I know what you want. You want a Benedictish Frankwich. No. Wait, the best thing to have right before you trip yourself into a Technicolor nightmare is an episode of Max Mike Movies!
Woo! And this week, what a trip we're taking. Be like the Cor-Man isn't just our aim in life, it's our current series as well. We're looking at the films of Roger Corman, one of the most successful directors in Hollywood history. This week, we're looking at an oddity even for old Raj, his dive into drugs and counterculture, 1967's The Trip. Is this an attempt to cash in on the times or a real representation of an LSD trip? There is only one way to find out. And who are your travel agents on this little sojourn? Well, over there, holding out the pass to psychedelic paradise, is Max. How do I know the color blue to me is the color blue to you? Levine, send us a vibe, Max.
Check the crayon box, okay, Cha-Cha?
And me, I'm just Mike Blues, the other guy. We got to get to The Trip, but first, we got to get to our poll question. Last time out, we asked which author's works you most enjoy seeing adapted into film. And you, being smart and eloquent and stuff, said these. Regan McStravick wrote, quote, Crichton and King both spent at least the second half of their respective careers writing books with an eye toward eventual film scripts, so it's probably not even fair to call those films adaptations, whether one loves the films they've spawned or not. A lot of Shakespeare's plays have been adapted into excellent films, and Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?, an adaptation of the Odyssey, is one of my favorite films, though I know of no other great films based on Homer's works, and that can be pretty effectively argued that neither of those authors wrote anything with the idea of a film script in mind. I suppose that's fair.
Probably not.
One of my absolute favorite films is Apocalypse Now, so I'd have to at least give a shout-out to Joseph Conrad for Heart of Darkness. I kind of feel like the art of adapting a good or sometimes even not so good story from its original book form into a film is more important to the quality of the film than is the author of the original story. And in that, I would have to say the Coens are probably the best at taking written stories by a wide variety of authors and turning them into good films. Oh, I left out David Mamet. He writes such naturalistic, if coarse dialogue. His scripts tend to make for good films, as long as you cast good actors, but because actors tend to like his work so much, most of his films tend to attract top-tier actors, so that's almost a given. End quote. Well, lots of good stuff. Thanks, Regan. Dave! Relso wrote in, quote, There are some writers whose novels I can't read, but whose movies I often enjoy. Dashiell Hammett and John le Carre come to mind. I can never follow the narrative flow with Hammett and don't like his prose. Le Carre just makes me angry in print. Lots of nastiness in his books that works on film but is unpleasant in print. Patricia Highsmith is similar. With the books, I am constantly thinking, why do I care? And when will this be done? But the movies can be cool. There are others whose books I love and movies always hit the spot. Jane Austen and Raymond Chandler come to mind. Hard to do a bad job with their stories. Oh, I bet somebody out there has, Dave. I don't know where, but I bet there's a bad Jane Austen film somewhere.
Yeah, maybe.
He continues, I figured you would not have heard of the Japanese authors in addition to not having heard of the movies, but here it is. You can include it in your broadcast or not as you see fit. For the first category, hate the books, love the movies, Higashino Keigo, check out Wings of the Kirin. How could you not watch a movie called Wings of the Kirin? For the second category, love all of the movies, Yamamoto Shiguro. His story turned into
Yamamoto Shiguro. He's my cousin.
No. How better to put this than no?
Totally is.
Yeah, his story, not yours, any relation of yours, his story turned into the Kurosawa movies Redbeard, Yojimbo, and Sanjuro, but he did a number of others. After the Rain, Hatsutsubomi, Rice Osan-chan. Also, Fujisawa Shuhei, who also did Twilight Samurai, River's Edge, Hidden Blade, Love and Honor, After the Flowers, and several more. Phew, thank you, Dave. Then there is Abe Kobo, Women in the Dunes, Face of Another, brilliant and thought-provoking. Not exactly entertaining. The movies are as deep as his novels. You might enjoy his book, The Boxman, which has an amusing premise, but I have not seen any movie of it, end quote. Well, we can always count on Dave for broadened perspectives. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, thank you.
Never mind, cool. Lots and lots of edits. None of which you'll hear. George Saulnier answered, quote, I would like to see a faithful adaptation of Lloyd Alexander's Prydain Chronicles. Disney's The Black Cauldron sucks.
Those. Okay.
The books are great and could really be good films if people didn't blank with them. To answer the question correctly, Elmore Leonard. His stories are wonderfully quirky and dark and fun. From Justified to Get Shorty to Jackie Brown, they are so entertaining, end quote. Thanks, George.
Yeah.
Tyler Stewart offered, quote, Neil Gaiman has been able to exert creative control over nearly everything that has been adapted, and as a result, they've been great adaptations. Coraline, Stardust, Sandman are all great, end quote. Thanks, Tyler. Noticed American Gods wasn't in there.
Yeah, and he didn't mention Good Omens.
Yeah. So, and I don't think he actually had any control over American Gods. Oh, no, first season, yes. Second season, no. That's right.
That explains a lot.
Yeah. Keith Wright added, quote, I want to say Stephen King, but there have been so many crappy movie adaptations of his novels and stories. My favorites are The Shawshank Redemption, Stand By Me, The Green Mile, The Mist, and Carrie. There may be others, but I can't recall right now, but those stand out. Oops, I forgot Misery. He didn't get out of the cock-a-doodle car, end quote.
Also The Shining.
Yeah, no, that's arguable. I don't think that's actually a very good movie, but that's just me. Okay. But there are lots of good movies in that list. Thanks, Keith. Okay, deep breath. Adam Mark.
Master of brevity.
Yeah, that's all right. He always has something interesting to say.
That is
week
true.
Is no exception. Adam Mark, our essayist, scrobed, quote, It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. So
Mr.
hard.
Mark.
I saw him at the salon. It really depends on the director. For example, I love Agatha Christie and 2 adaptations of her films, Murder on the Orient Express, 1974. See our entire episode on 3 versions of that, I think.
Maybe.
And Death on the Nile, 1978, are truly excellent adaptations, leveraging Christie's skill of suspense and intrigue and featuring amazing casts. The same stories, adapted anew, 2017 and 2022 respectively, are horrific aberrations, almost like community theater performed by convicts.
Oh, ouch! Take that, Kenneth Branagh.
That's not fair. There might be some very good actors that have committed crimes. So there. Yeah. They also add inappropriate and just plain discordant violent fight scenes. The director basically admitting, I have no idea what I'm doing, nor any appreciation for this author, genre, or audience. Kenneth Branagh needs to be put in the proverbial dunking tank with Poirot and Marple both pitching balls until he apologizes. If that were a feature at the Oscars, I'd watch. Jane Austen is my final vote, set in a certain time and place and context, and yet the stories are forever fresh, the motivation's eternal, the struggle's real. Plus, there are so many films inspired by Austen's novels. Emma begat Clueless, 1995, changing the setting from Regency England to Beverly Hills. Pride and Prejudice begat Fire Island, 2022, changing the dowry-less straight Lizzie into the trust fundless gay waiter Noah. Sense and Sensibility begat Material Girls, 2006, where Dashwood's sisters aim to get married and outrace their encroaching poverty, turns into their modern-day Paris Hilton-esque successors seeking to recover from viral social media disasters. Becoming Jane, 2007, a fanfic-esque biopic, say that 10 times fast, putting Austen on a romantic plot of her own, is a personal favorite. Austen is just so good at capturing human struggles of status, limited resources, self-realization, redemption, friendship, and our cherishing and enduring the eccentricities of others, all of which lends itself to film. The Empire Wastes, line dancing, and gentlemen swimming nude in ponds are also nice, but the stories transcend the confines of their time and place. Austen Eternal. She is, in my view, one of the top 5 authors of the English language, and her few novels have been just so generous to the many directors who have sent her characters aloft yet again, like kites in the park. Take her for a spin, one says to the next, as the music swells, the string tugs, the tail snaps, and everyone smiles as the story soars anew. End quote. Very literary. Thank you, Adam.
Very nice.
You've read some Jane Austen. What do you think of Jane Austen?
I do think she's a remarkable writer. I think she's a little airless at times. It's very dense, some of her stuff. But yeah, especially given this was a woman writing in the late 18th century, pretty impressive. And it absolutely endures. I mean, if you can judge an author based on the popularity, people friggin' love her.
Japanese, right?
Yes, exactly.
Cool.
So yeah, I don't know if I'd say she's one of the top 5 writers of the English language, but I'd put her in the top, I don't know, 20.
What's your favorite book of hers that you've read?
Let's see, of Jane Austen, I got to go with Pride and Prejudice.
It's a biggie.
That's one of the more fun ones too. I mean, there's actual humor in there.
Oh, that's always nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's a little insight on Jane Austen, but yeah. Nick Hoffman was next with, quote, so many really, Crichton and so on, and don't forget Ian Fleming, but who am I kidding? There's only one choice for a swashbuckler such as I, and that would be Alexandre Dumas. The Three Musketeers, The Count of Monte Cristo, and The Man in the Iron Mask have all been great films more than once, end quote. I was wondering when Fleming was going to make it into the mix.
Likes his Alexander Dumbass. Yeah.
No, it's French.
That's how it's spelled.
Oh, yeah, that's how your name's spelled. Thanks, Nick. Bruce Hurd Jr. posted, quote, Tolkien. I know that arguments run around that this film wasn't as true to the book, etc., but I am not an avid reader, and I generally appreciated the devotion spent in creating some epic journeys for the viewer to behold, end quote. Tolkien. Thanks, Buzz.
Where there's a whip, there's a way. Where there's a whip.
Totally written by Tolkien, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Roland Hardy said, quote, Ian Fleming and Michael Connelly. Oh, yeah, most of King's work, end quote. Thanks, Roland. I think Michael Connelly is a thriller writer. Mystery, yeah. I remember shelving him a lot.
Okay.
Val Coons, who does things with stuff and is the proud owner of the most bottles of Maison de Valors of anyone alive, said simply, quote, I'll go with Michael Crichton, the Grimm brothers, some Jane Austen, and Charles Dickens. Oh, and Shakespeare, just not Keanu Reeves in Much Ado, end quote.
Dude.
Man with the worst smelling mustache in the world. Thanks, Val, and drink up. Angela Patsalis gave us a little head scratcher with, quote, Douglas Sparks, Ian Fleming, Lord of the Flies, end quote. Well, 2 are the authors. Thanks, Angelo.
Wow.
Yeah. Peter Cook, no, not that one. A first-time commenter, I believe, wrote, quote, Elmore Leonard, end quote. Thanks, Peter.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Degsy O'Brien gave us, quote, Ooh, shall I be classy and say Shakespeare, simply for Forbidden Planet and West Side Story? Except that apart from them, I can't think of any other I liked. Okay, then, maybe Michael Crichton, simply for the volume of actual works I have watched and liked or loved. Andromeda Strain, The First Great Train Robbery, Johnny and the Clonosaurus? I don't know that one.
Never heard of that one.
And I forgot about
Now I want to go watch it.
I don't know if I do or not. Clonosaurus? Okay.
Come on. What a title.
And I forgot about Disclosure, Congo, Rising Sun, Sphere, Timeline. Never mind. Stephen King? Or is that too obvious? I want to say Richard Matheson for I Am Legend, Shrinking Man, and Hell House. Stephanie Meyer, J.K. Rowling, LOL. Fine, back to Stephen King. Purely out of sheer volume, there's more there to like than dislike. Also, most of his works tend to survive intact, which is a good sign of both the author and the adaptors, end quote. Man, that is quite a list. We're going to take Stephanie Meyer and J.K. Rowling out of that. Thanks so much, Degsy. Lastly, over to the website where things are always a few degrees cooler, we have Vince blah 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 penguins blah who wrote, quote, I thought a bit about what authors' books I have seen and liked its films, and Victor Hugo and Jules Verne are high on the list because Hugo has some great silent adaptations like The Man Who Laughs, Hunchback of Notre Dame, and Hands of Orlok. I don't know that one. Peter Lorre's version is called Mad Love and is a study in creepy perversity. While even bad Verne films get my attention because the base story always draws me in. Master of the World has Vincent Price and Charles Bronson in it, and I thought it was a Corman film, but it isn't. Maybe you guys can do a Jules Verne on film series, end quote. Gee,
that actually might be pretty good.
We did Captain Nemo in the Underwater City. Does that count?
I did he write that?
Not exactly. Or at all.
Based on the works.
Based near the works, but
actually,
thanks,
I think that'd be a pretty cool series. Jules Verne, maybe mix in some H.G. Wells.
We'd have to. I don't think there's enough. I can think of Master of the World and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and we're done.
What about The Mysterious Island?
I don't know that he wrote that, and honestly, I don't know that it's an adaptation.
I'll check, but anyway, yeah.
I think it was originally released as Captain Nemo in the Mysterious Island, and if I remember correctly, there ain't no Captain Nemo in it.
Oh, now with 100% less Captain Nemo.
But how about you, Max? Which author do you just love to see on the silver screen?
You know, it's funny. I was thinking of Tolkien, except apart from Lord of the Rings, that's kind of it.
Yeah.
I mean, The Hobbit...
Oh, dear.
No. The Rankin Bass Hobbit, I will always have a soft spot for, simply because they did the songs really well. We will not speak of the 12-part Hobbit movie, and, of course, the classic animated Rankin Bass Return of the King.
It's better than it could have been.
Technically. I mean, they could have just... sat there going blah 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 for 2 hours. I guess that would have been worse. But
I have a soft spot.
I can't. I think the adaptations of him have been too hit or miss.
Yeah.
I mean, when they work, they work. But I gotta go with Dickens. Partly because he's one of my favorite authors, but he has brought so many cool movies out of his books. Not just like the ones that are direct adaptations, like David Copperfield, but you had Great Expectations. Not just the one that's like literally based on the book, but the one with was it Ethan Hawke and Gwyneth Paltrow?
I like that one where he's an artist.
That's a really
that's
really a very good
It's
adaptation.
got De Niro's in it too.
He's Magwitch the convict. Yeah,
and it's like I didn't even know about that. I got on a kick looking for movies about painters and stuff, and that popped up, and I'm like, wait, what? And I actually really like the art in it too, which doesn't hurt. But so Dickens.
Yeah, I go with Chaz. How about you? Who's your book to film boy?
Richard Scarry?
Or girl? When did they make a movie of What Do People Do All Day?
I don't know,
Not
but
that
they
I wouldn't
should.
see it. Yeah.
There's probably cartoons out there, actually.
I'm sure there are.
I do have a fascination with what people tend to do with Philip K. Dick, mostly because I don't really like Dick's work, partially because it doesn't seem he understands what people are. But they often do, like, there's a film that I don't like, I think, and it's got Tom Cruise in it. It's Minority Report, and I've watched that film like 7 or 8 times. And I don't know. And of course, I love Blade Runner, which, let's see, has nothing to do with the story on which it's based. But there's always just something interesting that they do with it. So I do think a lot of
I can see that. Okay.
I do think a lot of the King stuff is good. A lot of it is bad. But, you know, when you get things like The Green Mile and Shawshank Redemption and Stand By Me.
There was one of the quotes we had. I have to take a little issue with saying that the good outweighs the bad. I think you're forgetting the sheer volume of movies that have been churned out. A lot of them based on like the short stories from things like Night Shift. I mean, there are so many really friggin' terrible. Kept Maximum, Overdrive.
I'm gonna scare the hell out of you.
The Green Goblin truck, really.
Yeah, well, you know.
Yeah. There are a lot of bad ones. There are some, Green, like you say, Green Mile, Carrie. I think The Shining is a remarkable piece of film work, even if it isn't a terribly great adaptation of the book. Even Christine isn't too bad, although it doesn't catch. It's not awful.
It's not awful, but it doesn't, for me, catch any of the feeling of the book.
No.
So I'd say, though, that the good in King's favor so outweighs the bad that you can just ignore the bad stuff and not care.
Everyone else does. Yeah.
You know what I'd like to see, though? I'd really like to see some Roger Zelazny brought to screen. Because some of his stuff is just like, could be really...
Very cinematic.
And they keep threatening to do the Amber Chronicles, and they never actually do it. So, but
yeah, they keep saying they're going to do a mini-series or what have you, and they never do.
they could totally do... I could even see splitting it up into, like, 2 series of, like, 5 or 6 episodes each. Just the original series, don't do the follow-up. Even Roger knew he was dying, and it was like, let's get this... it's not good. But the 9 Princes in Amber, that whole series, I would love to see that adapted. And some of his other stuff, I've never read Lords of Light or some of the other stuff, but apparently it could be really interesting as films. So, but that is all well and good. Now that we've got you warmed up, we'd like to know, what period in time is your favorite setting for films? Be it the past, the future, or the present? Which one generally attracts you most and why? Let us know, or we'll have to make up fake people and do all this work ourselves. Like all the digging we did to find...
The facts.
Corman's The Trip. Budget. Well... sources differ. One says 450,000, which seems very high for a Corman film. Another source says 100,000, which seems more likely. Okay, Max, I have to take issue with some trivia you reported last week. You said that The Raven was Corman's most financially successful film. If this source is correct, The Raven wasn't even close. This film made $10 million. So
What?
eat it, The Raven.
Wow, that's hard to believe.
6.5 in America alone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Shot in 3 weeks. Corman time. Boo doo 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 doo.
3 weeks. Wow, that's like an extended set for him.
Yeah, especially since it's all pretty much on.
God.
Yeah.
That's like 10 Little Shops of Horrors.
Kinda. Research. What better way to make sure you know how to express what's going to happen on an LSD trip than to just take one? Well,
Oh, no.
that's what Peter Fonda, Dennis Hopper, Jack Nicholson, and Roger Corman did. Speaking of research, I guess you could call it this, Jack Nicholson, the film's screenwriter, used his experiences with LSD and his impending divorce from his first wife, Sandra Knight, as fodder for his screenplay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Boy, I got to admit, being in the room with Peter Fonda, Bruce Dern, Jack Nicholson, Dennis Hopper, and Roger Corman on acid, I would pay a lot of money for that.
Well, if he rented this
And
film,
to
he
bring a
did.
tape recorder.
Bruce Dern was the straight-lacer of this movie, and as such,
Yeah.
had to ask what LSD was before making this film. Good for you, Bruce. While the U.S. is usually considered a land of Puritans, the UK refused to give a certificate to this film on 4 separate occasions, 1967, 1971, 1980, and 1988, as they felt it was more of an ad for LSD than anything else. It wasn't shown there until guess when?
I don't know, 2010?
2002. You were very close. This
Yes, it's rather a bit of a sticky wicket. Don't really want that sort of thing over here.
No, we don't do that. No.
No.
Maybe in the outlying provinces or something. No. This was the only American film the Cannes Film Festival opted to invite that year.
What?
Yep.
Oh, weird.
Does some of the dialogue sound a teensy bit familiar? Lines like, "You gotta turn off your mind, relax, and then just float downstream," are from the Beatles' Tomorrow Never Knows.
Oh,
Apparently
okay.
Tomorrow does know.
Oh.
Director Joe Dante has been trying to make a film about the making of this movie for many years. While a script has been written and a novel has been made of that script as late as 2022, there's been no news on the actual film being made. Perhaps Dante has to do more research. There are 4 Oscar nominees in this film. Peter Fonda, Dennis Hopper, Peter Bogdanovich, and Bruce Dern. Jack Nicholson, the screenwriter, has won 3.
Where's Peter Bogdanovich?
There's one character in there.
Okay.
Peter Bogdanovich, amongst many others, was yet another of the people that Corman gave a
Corman's
chance
crew.
to. Yeah. The house where Paul, the character played by Peter Fonda, takes LSD was owned by Arthur Lee, who was part of the psychedelic band Love. Most of the decoration was already there. It was also used in a promotional film for the band.
Well, of course.
And we're going to get to that. While one might think that old Roger plays fast and loose with his movie making, that could not be further from the truth. Sally, I'm going to go with Saxe, who plays Glenn, the woman interested in Paul, is quoted as saying, quote, Roger was a very linear director. Everything went from A to B to C. He was very serious. You didn't goof off or kick back while working with him. You had to be very on task. It was a stricter atmosphere than I was used to. The trip didn't deserve all the bad press it received. There was no drug use going on during filming. It was strictly professional. Maybe after hours, but I couldn't talk for anybody else, end quote. And just because it's themic, here's a little back history on LDS.
LDS?
I think there was somebody on it in the 60s. I don't remember. LSD is a Swiss invention, which is why there's so many holes in it. First made by Albert Hofmann in 1938. He was trying to find a stimulant for the respiratory system. One of the ingredients of the original LSD was ergo.
M-O-U-S-E.
One of the original ingredients of the original LSD was ergo, a fungus that grows on grains that can cause hallucinations and other reactions. It's been theorized that the Salem witch trials were the result of an outbreak of ergo poisoning. People who ate tainted bread, for example, can appear possessed when they're actually just stoned.
I've heard of...
Go ahead.
I've heard of ergo. I think it's like tall in power, but short in stature, wide...
Narrow vision and wide of purpose, which was in my notes and coming up, which is why I gave you the finger to stop, but you didn't.
Sorry.
Ladies and gentlemen, do you see why he's so often fired? No, I'm going to leave it in, since you ruined my notes.
My cunning plan has come to fruition.
That's as cunning as he gets. One of LSD's nicknames is Lucy, hence Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, LSD. Lucy, or not.
Well,
according to John, it
denied
wasn't.
that to the end.
It was a picture my son drew, man. That's exactly what John Lennon sounds like. Yeah. Effects can begin within a half an hour and can last up to 20 hours. LSD is considered to be non-addictive with a low potential for abuse. Unless you watch that episode of Dragnet, in which case you know LSD will make you paint half your face blue and go crazy.
Yep.
So, that's all we have on LSD. Do you have any other trivia you want to throw in here as opposed to just ripping off my notes?
Sorry, you mean about the LSD or about the movie?
Either.
I do know at one point Bruce Dern, John, who no last name, claims that he's got Thorazine on hand in case the trip goes out of control. Those of you who want to try this at home, don't. Thorazine can counter some of the effects of LSD, but it's kind of like driving your car at 90 miles an hour and then slamming the parking brake on. It can be really dangerous.
But remember, Max Mike Movies does not advocate jargs. We just prescribe them.
Yep. Rock and roll doctor.
Hello.
Goodbye.
Do you even know who did that bit?
I don't. It wasn't the Frantics, was it?
No, it was not. Hey, if you want a good comedy bit, do a search on Rock and Roll Doctor. It's a cute little radio show bit that we've been quoting for decades. But it's probably enough of that. So now the the plot.
Oh.
A guy goes on an LSD trip and somehow doesn't run into Jim Morrison along the way. The end. Okay, seriously. Am I wrong?
Hey, I think, no, you're not.
But seriously, Peter Fonda plays Paul, a commercial photographer. Portraits a specialty. Sorry, that's a Felix Unger joke. And filmmaker who's going through a divorce. He decides that it's the perfect time to try LSD. And who better to experience it with than Bruce Dern and Dennis Hopper? Paul goes to a safe house where he can be looked after while on his first trip. He takes the stuff and things start to go wild. We travel along with him as he sees psychedelic images, seems to see himself being pursued by hooded figures, traveling between the here and now and the there and then. Eventually, paranoia sets in and he flees the house, tripping through LA's Sunset Strip, wandering aimlessly and even stopping in a stranger's house where he gets milk for and watches TV with a little girl. Eventually, he's found by Glenn, a young woman who is already interested in him, but is sort of keeping an eye out for him as he trips his way through the city. They have sex, things are still weird, and finally, Paul seems to mostly come down as we end on an image of Paul's face that suddenly shatters for no reason. The end.
The film.
It's a silly question, Mac. Have you seen this before? No.
I'd never even heard of this before.
Me either. I would like to point out, just for people listening, if they're wondering, because I'm betting somebody out there is wondering, no, neither Max or I have ever had LDS. Or even FDS, the feminine deodorant spray.
I've ordered flowers from FTD. Does that count?
STD?
FTD.
I don't want your flowers. Ew.
Oh, come on. Take them. They'll spread them around.
Why do your flowers have warts? Sorry. Yeah, same here. Never heard of it. I have heard of Roger Corman, of course, but I picked this film because it was one of his most controversial and, as it turns out, most successful. $10 million, which,
wow,
that is quite the return.
Yeah.
But as usual in this show, we like to talk about the cast, and we've got quite a cast this time around.
Yeah.
So
we got Peter Fonda from, who is the son of Henry Fonda, the brother of Jane Fonda, and the father of Bridget Fonda.
Yeah. He's Fonda-ing about pretty well in this.
Yeah. We're pretty fond of him. Ha ha.
Have I fired you in the last 5 minutes? Because if I haven't...
Yes. Honestly, I have to admit, I've never really thought much of Peter Fonda. He's always seemed kind of wooden to me.
I think he's a time and a place.
I've never seen Easy Rider. I keep meaning to. I hear he's very good in that. I just remember, I remember him from Future World.
Spoiler, it doesn't have a happy ending. Just saying.
Yeah, I know. Everybody knows the ending of Easy Rider. I haven't seen the clip. That's one of the reasons I don't want to watch it.
Apparently it caused some riots when it came out, but yeah. I think, honestly, he does fine, because really what we need is somebody to stand in for us, right? That is what he is here to do. He is the stand-in for the audience, because most of them, well, actually, that's probably not true. I was about to say, most of the audience probably has no experience LSD. Probably not factually accurate.
No, 1967.
Yeah, I'm sure that's one of the reasons. I'm sure a lot of people actually did go to this film because they were like, what's this all about? LSD showed up, even though it showed up in 1938, it didn't become a street drug till the 1960s. It showed up, was not illegal, and then very suddenly was. So, honestly, I think he's fine. I don't think there's much asked of the part. I think he's meant to be... No.
He's a cipher. He's not really supposed to have a lot of personality.
Yeah, and luckily for him, he doesn't.
They get, I don't know why she's listed next. Susan Strasberg.
Yeah, she's there.
Is his ex-wife.
Yeah.
And she's there.
It's a Corman film, so she's a woman character with nothing to do with it. So,
yeah, pretty much.
Bruce Dern is honestly very comforting.
Rocking the beard, I gotta say. I don't remember if I've seen Bruce Dern with a beard in other movies. He looks good with one.
Father of
and
Laura
he does.
Dern.
He looks very. Yep. He looks very professorial, very comforting, and he's kind of the guy you would want supervising your first trip, except that he leaves you alone and you can get out of the house pretty easily.
Well, he just goes off to get some more Apo juice, so, or a Capri Sun, or would you like a Suzy Q, or a space food stick? Or, let's not go through that.
Some lukewarm pork.
He's one of those people, it's sort of like Rowan Atkinson in the second season of Blackadder when he wears a beard. It's like, he can actually be a reasonably good-looking human being, as opposed to Bruce Dern, who often just looks kind of off.
Bruce Dern is really good at playing bad guys because he always looks like he's about to kill you.
Well, and this is actually one of his very few empathetic roles, like one of his few nice guy roles. And honestly, the beard does help. So, Dennis Hopper is amazingly subdued.
He also looks like he's about 14 in this. I know he's like 21, but he just looks like a baby.
There is, however, if you look at him, he's very calm and relaxed, but in the back of his eyes, there's this little spark trying to go, can we go crazy now? Can we go crazy now?
His inner Dennis Hopper is trying to get out to his outer Dennis Hopper.
And again, I think he's fine. I think he does what he needs to do. And his character's name is Max.
Yes.
Maybe I can get him for this show.
You couldn't afford him.
Given what I pay.
Yeah. And then there are a bunch of other characters, none of whom really show up for more than one or two scenes.
Did you notice Dick Miller's in it?
I did. He was the bartender. Yep. Obviously, Dick needed a paycheck that week, and he got it. Good for him.
My feeling is that Dick Miller must have just been like really close friends with Roger, and he's like, "I'll do whatever. It's fine. You want me to star in a movie? Do you want me to need somebody in the background? I'm your guy. I'm here." And he's grinning at the camera or whatever. It's fine. But yeah, there's a lot of others. Half of whom have little silhouettes on their IMDb page, and the others are like, who? So,
Yeah.
it's...
Yeah.
And here's the thing. The film is ostensibly... And I did read that Roger was trying to do this. The film was ostensibly not trying to make a judgment on LSD. It was trying to just present a possible trip. Now, apparently, Roger had a good trip. And he was like, it was fun and he enjoyed it the one time. As far as I know, he only took it once. He did, however, want to bring in elements of a bad trip because he's like, I don't want to leave that out. That's part of the deal. So that's when things get weird. And of course, there's a lot of research done by other members of the cast and with the screenwriter. So there, interestingly, the film does start with a warning: don't do LSD. No, this is very bad. Yeah.
No.
What did you think about that? The little opening. Surgeon
I
General's.
thought that he put that in just so he'd get the film distributed.
Yeah, probably.
So that I don't remember if the Hays Code was still in.
There was haze, man. Lots of haze.
That purple haze, yeah. But no, a lot of theaters, wouldn't have shown it. I think if he hadn't done. No. See, this is about don't do it, right?
Yeah. The Surgeon General has determined that LSD can be hazardous to your health. Close cover before striking, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Interestingly, I think when I watched that documentary on Roger Corman, he said that American International forced him to put that weird freeze frame at the end of the film with the cracking glass, that was not originally his idea. It was meant to suggest the bad side of LSD, I guess.
Except it makes no sense.
No.
It's just like, it is literally out of nowhere. He's coming down, he's ripping off lines from Gone with the Wind.
Yeah.
Which
like, I don't know nothing about birth and no babies. I remember.
Yeah, that was it. No, it's like Glenn says to him, it's easy now. Just wait till tomorrow. Yeah, well, I'll think about that tomorrow. What?
But tomorrow never dies.
Tomorrow.
No, she won't stop singing. Wow, we went on a little deeper train there. Yeah, I think I saw something in the documentary, which was one of the reasons I wanted to see this film, that they made him put that little cracked mirror, whatever that thing is at the very end, to sort of give a downer feeling about the effects. I don't even know what it suggests. It's like this weird metaphor that doesn't have any...
His mind is going to break.
I got to say, once again, because we talked about this with the beat culture in Bucket of Blood, I think that the depiction of the counterculture of 1967 is not ironic at all. It's, I think, literally this is what it looked like. And as we found out from the house was exactly the way it was.
I don't know. I got to say, a lot of that setting, all I could think is, this is what some middle-class suburban square thinks the counterculture looks like.
Well, it was filmed up and down the Sunset Strip of the time.
Yeah, I can tell that.
The house was the house. I honestly think that he was not trying to push anything here. I think that there was places we didn't even get to San Francisco because this is all L.A., but there are places that were even wilder than that. I mean, we see the watered down version later in the film when he gets to that club again, and it's suddenly laughing because there's the woman with all the stuff painted on her and stuff, and Joanne Worley sticks her head up through the floor and sock it to me. I think that
I actually had that in my notes too. That reminded me of an episode of Laugh-In.
Yeah, well, it had to come from somewhere. Laugh-In to me is the suburban version of the countercultural. I honestly think that. Let's put it this way too: if Roger is keeping to form, he couldn't afford to add anything to film.
Yeah, that's true. He probably just wandered into some hippie's house and went, "Hi, can we film here for a few minutes?"
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me, especially the LA, the Sunset Strip stuff. Is there a permit?
I gotta say, the Sunset Strip at night is not a place you want to go if you're tripping balls, as they say.
Well, and where is the place you want to go?
You want to stay in a nice, low-lit room with a lot of toys to play with.
Honestly, I think that the house he breaks into where he gets the girl the glass of milk, that's probably the best place for him to
That would be the safest place, probably, except for the fact that Dad would probably shoot him.
Yeah. And
not to mention the fact, like, that little girl needs to be taught about stranger danger. It's like, no, weird man sitting on your couch watching Static. You don't sit down next to him. You run for Mommy and Daddy.
Kids, kids are not my favorite thing. I admit it right out there. I was at a party last week, and there was this little girl, and she's 3, and she's very cute, I'm sure. But she is the cleverest little girl I've ever met, because at one point I was standing next to the snacks table, and there were no other adults around that she was familiar with. Her dad was off to the side, her mom was somewhere, the uncle that she'd been hanging out wasn't there. So she looks at me and reaches up and grabs my hand, not grabs, but just holds my hand, and then just looks up and says, "Can I have cake?" So she's basically saying, I designate you the adult right now. I give you the power to give me cake. So I kind of thought this little girl worked the same way. It's like, I want milk. You're an adult. You can get me milk. Therefore, I give you the power.
I'm not saying her reaction was seemed fake. Because it's like, he's not being threatening or loud. It's that nowadays,
This is
he would have been beaten
though.
to death. Yeah.
Remember what you and I used to get to do when we were kids?
Yeah.
And like today, helmet, hockey mitts. Like,
yeah. Knee pads. What are knee pads?
There were no bike helmets. No. So, yeah, I got to say, Peter Fonda, those are some boss wheels, man.
Oh, yeah.
That's about as hippie. I think it's a Morgan. It's like, that's about as hippie car as you could get. That or an MG. But yeah, I got to say though, as soon as, I don't know if you felt this, but as soon as it's Bruce Dern brings out the bottle of apple juice, I'm like, no, don't trust the apple juice. Don't trust him. No, don't take the apple juice.
I did not think that. No.
Oh, okay. I did try to find out how many people dropped before seeing this, but I got to guess it was a large amount. So
yeah. I have in my notes when he wanders into the house randomly. Like, A, they don't lock their doors, and B, oh, look, he's Robert Downey Jr.ing into the house.
Oops. Or was that Rip Torn? He also did that. I thought
he did that
drove
too,
into the house. I don't think he actually...
Johnny Depp just wandered into this house. No, not Johnny Depp, although I wouldn't be surprised if he did too. Robert Downey Jr. was really wasted, found a house with an unlocked door, went in and went to sleep on the couch.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. Oops. Thankfully, he got better. Yeah, lots better.
Yeah.
There's parts of this film I think that are going. Let's put it right out there. There's a lot of Pokemon moments in this movie.
Yeah, folks. Yeah, seriously, if you have any kind of condition that is triggered by flashing lights, don't see this movie.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, this is something, and I don't know if Corman's being a cliche or if he started it. A lot of what he does is that very sort of generic, here's what a hallucination looks like. We're trying to, and it's, now, to be fair, this is incredibly difficult to convey on screen.
Right.
Just what it would look like to be on acid, but it's a lot of flashing lights and spirographs and camera filters and spin art.
That's what I kept
thinking. That's what I kept thinking. Is, oh, look, they're doing a strobe light over a spin art game.
Yeah. I'm actually going to lean towards giving him credit, because I honestly think, given his budget, which most of the money went to the cast and the writer, let's face it, I'm sure it did. Whichever amount it was. And having never taken LSD myself, so I don't know. I honestly think that this is probably as close as he was going to get. Now, with special effects today, here's the horrifying part. I think you could get way closer. I don't need to see that.
Yeah.
Right? I don't really need to see things melting into other things and blah, 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 blah. We do, however, get some very interesting hallucinations. Like there's this one point where I'm guessing he's in the past, and he's in this white shift thing, I don't know, and he's being pursued by these two figures on horseback in hoods. I don't know if you thought this, but my first thought was, have you seen Baggins?
Yeah, I have in here at one point, my note says he's gone for a walk with Goldberry and a couple of Nazgul. And they've wandered into a Ren fair. Huzzah!
Well, and here's the thing. Late 60s was prime Tolkien time. That's when he started becoming really popular on the campuses.
Yeah,
so
that's when Gandalf ended up on the presidential ballot.
I'm sure. I mean, Mickey Mouse.
No, he did.
Oh, no, I'm sure he did. But like Mickey Mouse had been there many times. But
yeah,
it might not be a bad idea. Just saying. Yeah, but honestly, it's just like, this feels like they're looking for the one ring to bring them all in the darkness.
Yeah.
Then we get some flashes in there, and I don't know if you caught some, but it's like, there's the House of Usher. Okay.
I didn't see that. A lot of the time, I admit I looked away because with the flash, it was giving me a headache. Then there's that strange... Yep.
I was just thinking, I was surprised we didn't see more of Roger Film's cast of favorites. Like, oh, here's the Raven. And, it's like, I'm dreaming of a bird or whatever. And
hey, a couple of times when they had guys in weird costumes carrying people around, I'm going, oh, no, he's hallucinating another Corman movie.
Or all of them. Yeah. We didn't get any black and white. I'll give him that, so...
No. Yeah, I got to say, some of that weird trial sequence where he's in a throne and he's being, I don't know, interrogated by Dennis Hopper. Did you see this? Did you think this, by the way? Dennis Hopper is wearing this strange red robe with black piping, and he's supposed to be the judge, and all I could think of is, oh my God, it's Q from Encounter at Farpoint in Star Trek Next Generation. Except for the hat, it's the same kind of outfit.
I honestly did not, but now that you mention it.
Yeah.
I think my favorite part in the hallucination is there's this weird little carousel moment, and on it is a little person who for no reason shouts out, Bay of Pigs!
Okay, I thought I got that wrong, but that's what I thought he said. And like, what?
That's what he said.
Again, this is someone trying to get across the idea of what someone on an acid trip is like, and unfortunately a lot of it is cliche. The whole, oh, I'm in my own grave. Oh, I'm being hanged.
Well,
I'm a priest. I'm a nun. I'm a whore. I'm a nun. I'm a whore.
It did feel like an avant-garde play where everything is a metaphor for death. That is true.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, because I don't have the experience. I had one hallucination when I was a kid. I had a fever of 105, and I thought I saw a turkey on a platter, steaming, and then moving. So I'm going to give him credit for that. Well, both of us will just have to take it as best we can because we don't know.
Yeah.
We got some pretty cool, interesting music in there, here and there. Some of it I like, some of it I don't. It was done by a psychedelic band, which they hired to do it. They actually hired a couple of bands, one of which appears in the film, but it's apparently not them playing, but that's okay. But speaking of music, this film did kind of remind me of another film that we have done on this series. Did it remind you of another film that we've done in this series?
Not off the top of my head.
Speaking of that, that's the very film. I thought it kind of reminded me of Head, but without the monkeys.
Okay, yeah. Yep, that same kind of random stuff.
Yeah, which is right around the same time. I think 67, 68, somewhere in there is when they did Head.
Around then.
I actually wish this film did have more monkeys.
And this had 100% less Tor Johnson.
Yeah, I suppose, but would Tor have really added that much to this film?
Tor it would add something to any movie he does.
Usually breadth and weight.
About 400 pounds, but yeah.
Tor's a big guy.
Yeah.
There's one point where Peter does, in fact, that's Peter Fonda playing Paul. Peter and Paul. I wonder if that's on purpose. He seems to flee the movie in search of a plot. He ends up in a laundromat, which is a great place to find plots.
Yeah. It's a very strange sequence.
Well, what isn't?
Yeah.
But the only thing that's not strange is the opening where he's like, hey, do you want some apple juice or some water? After that, things just start getting weird. I was glad to read, though, that because at first I was like, man, that is some fast acting stuff. Your nasal decongestant usually can't race with this stuff, but apparently that's true.
It varies. It can be 20 minutes. It can be an hour and a half.
Well, and then I was like, man, he got his money's worth because this is but apparently 20 hours is not unheard of.
It can happen.
Which is kind of too long. Mm-hmm. Do they have diet LSD? Could they...
I remember
with less sugar, maybe.
A couple of friends of mine gave me a tutorial on how to take LSD at one point.
Okay.
They did. Afterwards, I never wanted to. But they were like, "Don't expect to do anything for the next day, because you don't know how long it's going to last, and even afterwards, you're going to be wiped out." They also said, "Don't eat anything, because the food is going to start doing weird things. It's going to start like growing eyes or moving."
Don't have it nearby because you can eat it because I can see inside me. Maybe.
No. I mean, don't try to eat while you're tripping.
Oh, I see. Okay. I thought it was also something that tended to make you not hungry.
That I don't know.
Maybe you're just too busy.
They do say keep stuff around to drink because it does dehydrate you.
Weirdly, I thought here and there in the hallucinatory aspects of the film, there was kind of a nod to, of all people, Ingmar Bergman. There were certain Ingmar Bergman-esque things in here.
You had the guy in the white makeup who, admittedly, I thought, is that Nestor from Battle Beyond the Stars?
I mean, he hadn't made it yet, but sure. Yeah. I also thought there's one point where later on, because they hadn't done this for the whole film, and I was pleased that they hadn't, but suddenly as he wanders out into the Sunset Strip and he wanders into the club, oh, by the way, tits!
Yeah.
Like, there are literally no reason. It's just like...
there's frontal nudity. Yeah. Of course, they're painted, so I guess that doesn't count. I don't know, but yeah, it's out of nowhere. There's a fair amount of sex in this. Yeah. There's like there's a hallucinogenic three-way between the blonde woman, Paul, and Glenn. His ex-wife, I think.
Yep.
And at the end, I think he's actually having sex with Glenn, but we don't really know.
Neither does he. Yeah, and I'd be amazed. I didn't see this either. If this got anything but an X rating, I don't know. It wasn't like you don't see full frontal male. You don't really see full frontal female. You see, as I said, tits, but tits for tots. But
might have just gotten it a hard R.
I would think that the drug use might give it the X, but I don't honestly know. There's no way to tell.
I do have to say, when they walk into the when he goes into the laundromat and he goes past the gumball machines, I have a note here that says, Tom Servo, save him, Tom.
I didn't even notice that. The Foles machines, F-O-L-Z. That was the name on the little flap of the machine. I don't know why I noticed dumb stuff like that. I did feel this film had a kind of dazed and confused-esque feeling to it, and I don't just mean the drug use. What I mean is, when I first saw Dazed...
plot.
Well, there's that, but there's no conflict or tension, really. Every time there's about to be some conflict or tension, he just sort of hallucinates himself out of it. Like, there's a point where he's sort of being chased by the cops, but that just goes away.
We don't even know if he is being chased by the cops or if he just thinks he's being chased by the cops.
Well, let's put it this way. If he hallucinates cops, they're boring cops. They're not like, in wearing, I don't know,
like
banana splits or stuff or anything. I don't know. Yeah. So I will say something that this film did make me decide, although I think I'd already decided, this film actually made me decide, I don't want this.
I never wanted to, and oddly enough, well, first off, one of the reasons I never wanted to take a hallucinogen was because of Dave. Dave? Yes, because he's taken so many of them that... No.
Wow. No, man, this is going to be a record episode for you being fired.
Yeah. I remember Dave telling me back in junior high, and his parents were doctors, so I think he must have asked them about it. He said, I don't really want to take something like that because I'm told... about 1 in 200 people go on a bad trip and don't come back.
Ooh.
And I don't like those odds.
Yeah.
And that was enough for me for a very long time. Then it was something in a webcomic called QC, which the guy summed it up perfectly. He said, I know my subconscious. I don't want to give it unfettered access to my audiovisual cortex.
Yeah.
Like, I'm right there with you.
Well, and it's, they talk, like in the beginning especially, the film is depicting LSD as like, look at all the cool things you can see. Think of how creative you're going to be. So it can open up the doors to perceptions you never would have thought of. And then it's like, but also there's this. And, there's a clown with a penis in its head or,
Yeah, I mean, you read Aldous Huxley, Doors of Perception, and it sounds like hallucinogens are amazing and will, open up worlds. But I got to say, one thing they actually did pretty on target is when Paul is talking to other people. As I say, I haven't done hallucinogens. I have been around people on hallucinogens a number of times, and that is how they talk. Like, what they are saying is the most profound, significant. They're getting these incredible insights, and they're just jabbering.
Yeah.
And they are dull and confusing. The worst is, and I know a number of people who've done this, and they always tell you it in the same tone of voice, and the sort of shamefaced, I had the greatest insights when I was on mushrooms, and I wrote them down, and I looked at them the next day, and they were the stupidest, most puerile, juvenile crap you can imagine.
Hey.
And I burned them.
Oh, that's too bad. We need more episodes of Speed Racer. But I hate to say this, but the clock on the wall is like Destroyed X Medicated hour is just about over, so we should get to that part where we decide, hey, all this aside, does the film work or not?
I do have to say there was one line I really liked in there, back in the laundromat.
Bam,
What's
pigs.
her name? Who's talking him? I've got a big load in there. Like, that's what she said. Well, that is what she said, yes.
Okay, thanks. Now we have to get to that part.
Yeah. The finish.
So, Max.
Yeah.
Never seen it, never heard of it.
Nope.
What did you think of the trip?
Interesting idea, boring execution. This is one of the first Corman films I've actually watched where I got bored. In this hallucinogenic scenes, it really is like having someone try to describe one of their dreams to you. It's not that interesting.
Or their D&D games.
Or their D&D. No, exactly. The D&D games can be incredibly fun, but they are incredibly boring to hear described.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly why. I've heard them described by people who are excellent storytellers. It's not the same. It's because you're not in it. But some of those psychedelic scenes just go on so long, unnecessarily so. And again, I thought the idea was interesting, and I did think it was surprisingly even-handed in that he does seem to be fascinated, but he also gets very scared a few times. I don't know if I would recommend it as like a research piece, or if you're a completist for Roger Corman, or if you really want to see one of the less scare tactic drug movies of the 60s. What about you? What'd you think?
I actually thought it was interesting.
Okay.
Again, I agree with you. Again, that there is very even-handedness in this. It is no way trying to say take LSD or not take LSD. It's doing both and neither at the same time. I think that for its time and for the limited resources that Corman had, it's depicting things as best as was possible. I don't know that is a perfect representation, but I'm willing to bet that there's quite a lot of hallucinating that looks like that. I will agree with you. Parts of it go on too long, and it's like, yeah, we get it. I didn't mind the hint of some sort of story with Frodo and the ring in the background that actually does sort of lead somewhere. That was actually kind of nice as something to hold on to, as, oh, good, a plot. I think the acting's fine. I honestly think that it is as close a depiction to the counterculture and the times as was possible without trying to imply anything other than what was there. Could you have found areas or places that were even more counterculture? Maybe not. Part of me was watching all these people going, there's tomorrow's Republicans. Because that turned out to be true. So do I think it's a movie I would recommend? Probably not, but only because I think a lot of people just don't have interest, like you say, in hearing people talk about their D&D characters. As much as we love to do it. They'll just don't.
Yep.
Maybe a podcast while you're playing D&D is one thing, but just going on and on about your characters, or your dreams, whatever. I think it's probably the most un-Corman-like film of his we've seen yet. Not least of which because there's no actual discernible plot, except man takes drugs, man is on drugs, man is no longer on drugs, man's face explodes like a mirror.
Yeah, I suppose, except we also get, gratuitous boobs, gratuitous sex.
Just the way it's being told feels like he's flexing his storytelling and his editing. So I'll give him, again, points for that. Because say what you will about Roger, one of the things we have definitely found out is the man made money. And in this case, a lot of money. So, if you have any interest in that, I honestly think this film will allow you to, if you're on the fence, and no, we're not advocating that you take any drug, this film might push you over. It did for me. It's like I was always kind of vaguely curious. After this is like, no, not at all.
Yeah.
No. So, but what we're also curious about is your answer to our poll question. And what we want to know is, be it the past, the future, or the present, which is the time period that you most like to see in a film? Is it because you love science fiction, or you love period pieces, or you just want to see commentary on what's going on here and now? Or does it not matter to you? Whatever the story is, don't do that. Just answer us one way or the other. And you can answer us by emailing us directly at us@maxmikemovies.com. Go to our website, leave a comment. Tell us you love our show, you hate our show, you want to see this film reviewed, or you want to see us do this series. That's maxmikemovies.com.
You want to listen to Mike being tased repeatedly.
Yeah, that's going to be reversed because of all the times you were fired this episode. And keep your nose out of my notes. You can go to Facebook, where we have a page on Max Mike Movies. You can leave your comments there, which most of you already do. Spoiler, there might be a way coming up for a special show that you can give us your comments a different way, but we haven't talked about that yet. And you could also find us on any podcast app that has ever been made. Max Mike Movies is the name. But, Max, we have come to the end of our series here on Roger Corman. We've got one film to go.
One more.
Penultimate. So how are you going to end this, mother?
Well, we all love Frankenstein, but I think we're all tired of seeing him bound. We need a Frankenstein unbound.
Do we?
Yes, because this was the last film that Corman actually directed. He went on to keep producing for another almost 20 years.
Wow.
But this was the last film, Frankenstein Unbound, that he directed. So we're going to see it, talk about it, and then get all bound.
I thought we were unbound.
No, he's unbound. We're bound.
Oh.
Keep up.
Bound to like this movie.
This has been a co-production of The Voice of Max and The Movie Wrench.
Hello, this is me leaving a message for you. My message is very important to you. By all means, download it and see if we can play it so we can use it on the show, won't you? And thank you. And Bumpy thanks you too, in ways you don't really want to know about.